You're listening to Beyond the Measure, episode 40. Listen as I, a young choir director, and my husband, a young composer, interview other music educators in order to gain insight into their own success in the classroom. We have a lot to learn, and we want you to learn with us. No matter your age, ensemble, or experience, this is the ideal podcast for music educators, composers, and students alike. So join us as we go beyond the measure. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode. My name is Kara.
And my name is Christian.
And this is the Beyond the Measure podcast. If this is your first time joining us, this is a show where we interview all types of music educators and they just tell us their story and their experiences and all of the knowledge that they've had over the years. And we put it out into the world so that everybody can learn something from it.
Yeah, that's right. So we have a very well-known guest on our show today that we really had such an incredible privilege to be able to interview for this show, or at least in West Texas and in the choral world. I mean, if you grew up in the choir world all the way in the past 20, 30, 40 years, you probably know the name Dr. Loyd Hawthorne. And that is who we have had the privilege to interview for this show. Now, Dr. Hawthorne, you're going to learn a lot more about him in the interview, but he was the choir director at Hardin-Simmons University for many, many years. I can't remember how many years specifically. I think he says it in the interview, so you can listen for that. But yeah, he was there for a long time, and he left a few years before Kara and I were freshmen at Hardin-Simmons, so we did not sing under him when we were there. But, I mean, I have heard, and Kara has heard, we've all heard so many incredible things about him. He was the conductor for the Texas Baptist All-State Choir for many, many years as well. And so he just made a profound impact in the choral space all across the state during his time as an educator. Now, Dr. Hawthorne was kind enough to invite us into his home for this interview, so we do apologize. The audio quality is not nearly up to par with what it usually is, like it is for this intro, so we do apologize for that, but nonetheless, you'll be able to hear all of the incredible stories and wisdom that he brings with his many years of experience.
From this episode, you're going to hear right away his passion for students and connection, and that's just been so inspiring. And as somebody who wasn't under the direction of him ever, I have witnessed, and me and Christian both have witnessed how many lives he has touched all around. And so it was just really inspiring to just hear him talk about that.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be able to hear from the stories that he shares. The word that comes to mind when I listen to him speak, it's intentionality. He was so intentional about how he would recruit for his program at Hardin-Simmons and how he would interact with students, and that's how he developed those kinds of connections. So intentionality is the word that comes to mind when I listen to this. And so thank you all so much for listening again. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So without further ado, here is our interview with Dr. Loyd Hawthorne. Dr. Hawthorne, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it, whatever it is. I don't think I've ever been on a podcast.
This is a first for you.
There you go.
Hey, that's okay. Sometimes it still feels like we haven't done this for a long time either, but I guess we've done a few at this point. But
Okay.
I will say I think this is one of the ones that we're most excited for, though, because you're such a great guest to have here, and really excited for our listeners to learn more about you. I did want to start by telling the story of whenever I first asked you, Dr. Hawthorne, to be on the podcast, and you asked, well, what is it, what do y'all do for it? And I said, well, we just ask other music teachers to tell share their stories and their knowledge and wisdom. And you said, oh, I don't think I have any of that.
See, I was all-knowing.
Yeah, that's right. But no, this will be great, and we'll just kind of see where the conversation takes us. Does that sound good?
No telling where it might. That sounds great.
That's right. Perfect. Well, could you start by just telling anybody listening to this who you are and what you have done for the past years in music?
Oh my goodness. How many days do we have? Loyd Hawthorne. I am retired from Hardin Simmons University, where I had been the choral director, music education teacher, and also for a while had been the dean of the School of Music as well. It's been 50 years since I came for an audition and was hired, and have been associated then with Hardin Simmons ever since. My background, my educational background, Lamar University, Beaumont, Baylor University for a master's degree, and University of Texas, Austin, and for a degree in choral conducting. Then I went for 1 year to Carson Newman College, replacing a person on sabbatic, and would have continued there except Dr. Jack Dean contacted and said, we'd like to have you come and visit us. And so we did. And that's what opened the door to everything else. Almost sounded like, how did this happen? And so forth. But actually, there were a lot of things that seemed to intersect that made a difference. I had been graduate assistant to Dr. Ewell Porter in my master's work, well known amongst Baptists and so forth, and had been a teacher, a student at Hardin Simmons University. Went on then to pursue the doctorate. Dr. Morris Beachy was brought to Hardin Simmons University by Dr. Dean. And it just so happens I had been the graduate assistant to Dr. Beachy when I was there. So I guess Dr. Dean just got in touch with those two at various times, and one thing led to another. And here we go to a university in far west Texas that we knew was one of our Baptist colleges or universities, but I didn't know anything else about it. And from that point on, I came in, and essentially Dr. Dean said, I'll tend to the little stuff, teach. And I could not have asked for, planned a better teaching load than what I had. Is that enough?
Oh, yes. That's great. And how many, so remind me, how many years did you teach at Hardin Simmons?
Oh, I was here for 33 years.
Wow.
I taught 6 years in public school music, 2 different high schools. And then after that, I went on to do my doctoral studies and so forth. And then I went for 1 year replacement at Carson Newman and was there for 1 year and really was quite happy with staying, but Dr. Dean interrupted that. And now I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for it. So it's been a great time here.
I want to talk a little bit how me and Kara know you and how we first heard about you. We were freshmen at Hardin Simmons in the fall of 2017, which at the time you had already retired by that point. And so we came in as freshmen. We sung under Dr. Clell Wright in the choir there and Dr. D. Romines. But that first year, as we got into that first fall semester and homecoming was approaching, we heard about there was what we would call an alumni choir performance at Hardin Simmons, and you were the one that did that. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what that is that you do?
Well, at this particular point, I have always felt that for the good of what we're doing within the School of Music at Hardin Simmons, I was very much dependent on staying in contact with exes. And so during those years, 33 years at Hardin Simmons, there were a number of times that we just simply called at homecoming, we're going to try to do an alumni chorus. Please come and we'll ask you to sing as a part of our concert that we used to do at homecoming. Well, that all worked out real nicely. And so we would come in and in the short time that we would prepare 2-3 pieces of music, enjoy the quick learn and so forth and so on. And then in our concert later on, we would sing with the alumni chorus. And then the alumni would have the pleasure, we hoped, of hearing this year's edition of concert choir. And that way we kept lines of communication open between us. It made a lot of difference that way, getting to know people that way, so that when we were out on choir tour, yes, we could sing at this ex's high school and this ex's high school and at this church where the minister of music was a Hardin Simmons graduate as well. And so we kept in touch that way. When I retired the next fall, because the retirement came very closely to the beginning of the fall semester, but then the next fall after my retirement, we had a big alumni concert for me. We had 175 people who came, and that was a very meaningful thing too.
Yeah.
But it's just something that I had thought all along was really important, was that kind of dialogue with our exes. So anyway, that's sort of what the concept has been. And so when we come back now, this homecoming, we're going to once again have a big emphasis of come back, see what's happening at the 40 acres, see what's happening in the College of Fine Arts and Media.
Yeah.
So we hope it will turn out to be a plus in every respect.
Yeah, the alumni choir is, and I think for context, for those listening that may not know, that fall of 2017 when we first heard about you, that concert, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the last time that concert had actually happened until this year, just because of COVID and a bunch of those things. It just, a few years went by where we weren't able to do it, but this is the first time since then. So it's been what, 5, 6, 7, 7 years or so, and so that's a big deal. We're really, really excited for that. I want to hear more about, hearing a little bit about how you would, what techniques you would use to recruit for the program and everything. But first, I really want to get right into the meat and potatoes of, if there's a young educator listening to this, and here they have the opportunity to listen to a seasoned veteran of music education, if there's one piece of advice that you could give them for any aspect of the career, whatever you feel like is the most difficult, what would you be able to offer to them?
Be sure you have a passion for teaching, and you have a passion and a great concern for students. It has to start there, in my way of thinking. And see, there are going to be dead spots here while I really think about that, because it's a challenging question. But that would be the first thing to me. And then you have to keep lines of communication open so that you can go out and recruit and basically be a salesperson, selling the idea of creativity, of making music. And you've got to go one by one by one. Back to your to the alumni again and so forth. You have to stay in touch with them, because they're the people who will invite you into the church, who will send their son or daughter or outstanding singer. So you really, really need to keep those lines. And the truth of the matter is, you need to get off the 40 acres. You've got to go out where?
Into the world.
Yeah. And I admit, and we can talk about this later if you want to, the major recruitment tool that came and just stumbled into my lap was, of course, the Texas Baptist All-State Youth Choir. And that was a godsend. I got to conduct the first 10 years of it.
Wow.
And we're talking about choirs that had on several occasions exceeded 400 members.
Yeah, tell us more about that. Tell us about what was it called? The All-State Baptist, Texas All-State Baptist?
Texas Baptist All-State Youth Choir. And I'm trying to remember, I really cannot tell you what was going on before that. They had tried to, at the state level, to have some kind of choir for teenagers during the summer. But it hadn't done everything they wanted to, so they wondered about trying this idea, auditioning across the state and everything else, and trying to put together a choir. So here we go again. I get a call from the state office. Sam Prestige would like to come out and buy you lunch. I said, well, okay. I met them. We sat down to the meal, and they said, look, we want to organize a Texas Baptist All-Star Youth Choir. Would you be interested? Well, certainly. Give me a moment. Yes, I would be interested. Roy Stell was one of the associates in the music office, and his son was a student at Hardin Simmons. And somewhere in it, and I'm not going to use the word, but somewhere in it, they had said, what about this guy that's coming to be Yo's choir director? And Royce's son said, he's working our off. And I thought, that's not bad. Good, by George. 112 auditioned or were selected. I think finally we did 96 the first year. Next year we're singing Church Music Conference out at Glorieta. But before we did that, we did the Youth Evangelist Conference where that group sang there, and then we traveled out to New Mexico. But anyway, amidst all those wonderful opportunities, there were students who came to Hardin Simmons, and that helped. It's a hard time coming right now, but my suggestion is just one at a time. And as you can do it, and you know how busy you can be, but as you can do it, get off the campus, go where the people are.
Let's take a quick break from this episode so that I can tell you about this podcast's primary sponsor, Christian Fortner Music. That's right, my own music business. If you're looking for fresh new music ranging anywhere from middle school choir to college level orchestra, there's a good chance I'll have it. And while I am a young composer, my music library is constantly growing as I write more and more. The way I sell the music is a little different from other music retailers as well, which I think you'll like. Instead of purchasing a minimum number of individual copies or parts, you'll purchase one PDF that includes all parts in it, of which you can print out as many times as you need. That way, you don't have to stress about purchasing a new part that you misplaced or feel the shame of only purchasing 10 copies for your ensemble of 40. Come on, we've all done it before. Now, if you'd like a sample of what my music is like, you can actually receive a completely free piece of music from a certain selection when you sign up for my mailing list. Plus, you'll be a part of other fun perks, such as receiving monthly updates from me and early access to podcast episodes such as this one. If that's something you'd be interested in receiving, you can do so at christianfortnermusic.com/mailings. Well, I was going to say, I mean, between your work in that choir, at the Hardin Simmons Choir, and at the Texas Baptist All-State Choir, I mean, there are so many people that you have personally made a positive impact on through those things and all the other things you've done in your career. I'll tell you from my own experience, not just here in Abilene, but the times that as an admissions counselor that I'm going off campus and traveling to schools all across the state, I'll run into alumni and music alumni, and I'll mention the School of Music, and they say, "Oh yeah, I was there and I sang with Dr. Hawthorne," and your name is brought up, time and time again, no matter where I'm traveling in the state. And so I think it's just a testament to the work that you've done and how you have done that. It really, really has paid off, and it really did make a difference.
Well, I hope it did. I cannot tell you how many people came back and said, over the years, said to me, so there was an event that cemented in young people that they know this is where God wants them to be doing what they're doing. And those kids, they ministered. Did we have problematic ones? Yeah. Do we have them in the church? Yeah. Do we have them in the classroom? Yes. So forth and so on.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your public school teaching experience. How long did you do it, and what were some of the hard things about it, and what did you learn from the public school teaching?
Yeah. A lot. and in some respects, I knew what to expect in teaching because I knew what teaching was about. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's different from what it is now. And some of that I can't speak to because of the demands in a lot of ways that are being made on teachers. One of the biggest challenges for me, nowadays an awful lot of teachers have assistant directors. My first Waco Richfield High School choir that I had 250 kids in 5 classes a day without any assistance.
Wow.
Moved to Port Arthur. And in Port Arthur, I had 300, demanding in selection of music, demanding and just literally physically teaching and so forth was a big part. But motivation of students, and I don't mean a dog and pony act, but you must really, truly care. And you must spend energy on them and they must know that you have high expectations for them, but that you care for them in the classroom. So I hope to have been a communicator in that respect.
Yeah.
But love your students, love teaching. I had a dear friend who was a music supervisor. He was telling me about his daughter, and people were saying, "Oh, you got to go and go where the money is," and so forth and so on. Finally, she said to her dad, "But I don't want to make a living. I want to make a life."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That same man used to come for career day, and into my top choir he would come with me thinking, he'll be the motivator to really encourage many of these kids. And the first thing he said when he got in front of me is, "Folks, I'm here to talk you out of teaching music, because if I can, you don't belong in it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about that.
That's
Think
good.
about it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so be sure what your motivation is as well.
Well, what would you say to like a young teacher right now that they definitely are passionate about teaching music, like they definitely want to do that, but with teaching comes many difficulties. I mean, what are the best ways that somebody can work through those things and push through so that they can still continue to pour that passion into their work?
I believe that they should find someone who would be willing to just almost mentor them through those things.
Yeah.
Be an encourager that way. And look at others who have been successful and try to glean from them why, and so forth. I'm not sure you can walk that path by yourself.
Yeah.
I think you need somebody to assist you along the way. But, oh gosh, I think teachers are getting buried with paperwork these days. But you can do it. You can do it. So I would encourage you. And what did we say a while ago? I think you mentioned it. You can't just turn around and walk away from it. You got to promise me you'll give me 3 years to see how you can get those things. Another one of our exes, he started out at Old Franklin Junior High here, and boy, he was miserable, just miserable. One Wednesday night over at church, he came in and everything, and he said, "Here's what I did today, and this and this and this." And I said, "Praise the Lord, we've finally resurrected a teacher." You've got to turn your mindset, and you have to do a part of that yourself. But you can hopefully find some people who can give you some help along the way. Brenda, my wife, has always been fortunate with the places she's taught, but in every one of them, she has come to a closeness for all of her faculty, but also her second grade teaching group and so forth. And assisting each other is another thing that helps. But be prepared, know your literature, and know how to teach it. Make sense?
Yes.
Crystal clear, definitely. So speaking of finding people, but in a different way, talking about your recruitment process when you were director at Hardin Simmons, could you give us some examples or some stories of ways that you did, ways that you went out and recruited people, like when you would leave the campus and go visit, schools or wherever? What did that look like? And also, what were things that you did to keep students at Hardin Simmons once they were there, to retain them?
Yeah. One thing that we did, and once again, I'm telling you something that I'm not sure how you'd apply it now. Things have changed. Things have changed. But we took a one-week tour, 7, 8, 9-day tour. And we didn't play around. We sang 19, 20, 21 concerts. Put the product out there, well created, and there's a recruitment tool. I used to say, you want to be successful on the tour? Here's what you do. You go to where our Simmons X is on the staff of whatever, as we got better students, we were invited to sing TMEA. Over the course of my teaching there, we probably sang 5, 6, 7 times. We were competing every time we tried to go. We were competing against TCU, UNT, Tech, University of Texas, so forth. Hardin-Simmons, 1,500, 1,750, 2,000 students going up against those people. But when all of these different wonderful talents kept coming in, I kept the bar higher for us. I admit that. But because of that, then we could do it with greater excellence. And because of that, then more students needed to come. And by the way, a happy student at Hardin-Simmons begets another one back at home school, back at another at home church, etc.
Right.
And so it's good to get out. But you have to get out too. After that first year of our singing at TMEA, which was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I also, though, got in touch with TCDA, Texas Choral Association, and said, can I come and conduct one of these reading sessions? Can I help with this? Can I help with that? And sure enough, one thing after another came along. Ultimately, I got to be president of TCDA, past president, past vice president. So, how willing are you to go out and touch base that many different ways? Jeremy Mims, that I mentioned to you a while ago, my goodness, he didn't know the word no. And as a result, his choirs are singing everywhere, and he's conducting everywhere, and so forth. So it's that helps with the overall recruitment.
Just getting out there and being known.
Being known, absolutely. Oh, and that's another thing too, for that young teacher. Unless your school just doesn't have a way to release you to do it, go to your professional groups, attend them, because there's always something there. There's music in the exhibits. Be out there, and once again, turn to others to help guide you toward that as well. So I ended up, by the way, I guess I got to conduct all but about 1 or 2 of the region choirs in the state, and that was a wonderful opportunity too.
And so whenever y'all would go out and do the tour, what were some of the best things that y'all did to really bring in students? I mean, what makes a successful tour in your opinion? Is it just quantity, or are there specific things you do when you're at a school singing that you feel like are really beneficial? What do you think is best?
Well, a little bit of both. When we sang on tour, like a 25-minute, 30-minute program in the schools within hour and a half, night concerts as well. But I always would stop and say, can we take a moment now until the bell rings to visit with each other? Are there any questions you have, any things that we can tell you that might let you know more about our university? And sometimes the best recruiters are our students.
That's
they're
true.
They're happy to be doing what they're doing, therefore they want. What kind of choir do you want to have? You want to have where more and more and more talented people come along so that we begin to excel in so many, many areas, not the least of which is the level of music that we're able to sing and so forth. Because if more of them come, we strengthen our choir, therefore we give me more experiences as a singer within the choir because of the literature we can do. But where else? So let's go. Ask the questions. Keep them coming.
Sure. I was going to say, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it's being personal with the people you're visiting is one of the biggest draws you can have for students. Is that right? Yep.
I also would always ask ahead of time, could you have the choir sing something for ours? Not to make comparison, but just to say, we too want to hear and support you. And we sing an awful lot of fun places. So you have to expend energy.
Right.
And what are you willing to give up to make things better in your own home program? What do you give up to grow over here and
Right.
enrich your experiences over here. So pick and choose.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I mean, I can actually, this is one of the few things I feel like I can actually be an expert on this podcast, since I work as an admissions counselor at Hardin Simmons. I can tell you, and anybody listening, 100%, the programs where to this day that the professors are doing work to recruit themselves, as opposed to just expecting our office to do it on our own, which, I mean, we can, right? But the ones where the professors are still willing to put in that work to contribute as well, those are the ones that grow. Those are the ones that flourish. I mean, you're exactly right. Whether that's time or resources or whatever sacrifice that is, that's going to pay off exponentially.
Oh, there's no question about it. Absolutely no question about it. And let's face it, a school our size, everybody should find it to be their responsibility to be involved some way. Now, to me, one of the least effective ways to recruit is to throw out there this general letter. We would love to see you, whatever, so forth. Of course, the strongest way is one-on-one. Watch what it does, but what it does for you. We had a very dear friend, who one of our counselors came by with a student who was an all-state violist, all-state viola, and but she wanted to be a surgeon. She came through in the sciences, but she played in the orchestra all 4 years. When she came to visit, somebody brought a girl to somebody in science and said, "We've got this young lady, yakety yak, and so forth, and Celeste is over there just wishing like everything. Yes, we need her. Can she come and see you and visit with you?" "No, I can't now, I'm busy." "No, yes you can.
Yeah.
If it's just, excuse me just a minute, let me now speak to you. Well, I can only do it here, but please come back." It's all an approach. But I just never felt like it was all the responsibility of recruitment to do all that. I do want to say something else.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the hardest things at Hardin Simmons, one of the hardest things has been loss of students. It's an important time, though, too, where you can make a difference in reaching out to those who've lost somebody. I lost 4 students. Could have lost another one. It's 5 too many. Again, in those hard times, you have to be there. First one, headed home right before Thanksgiving. Girl driving overcorrected, came back across. This young lady would have lived, except that she didn't have on the seatbelt. Her head hit a fence post. Beautiful, lovely young lady. How do you minister to that need? 3 kids, a break for a weekend because I had another group. Simmons Classic was doing something for the vocal division of TMEA, and so we were together and rehearsed and so forth. And so I let the choir go home for that weekend. They got to within 15 miles of one of the young ladies' house. Head on into an 18-wheeler. 2 young ladies, 1 young man. Beautiful young people. How do you minister to them? So when I got the call another time at 11:30 at night that another deer had been in an accident, her parents having to drive from 6 hours away, and they had to just say to the doctors, do what is necessary. Brenda and I were ready to go to bed, and she looked at me and she said, "You think you need to go, don't you?" I said, "Yes." And so I went to San Angelo and stood with a young person who ultimately became her husband, but stood over her bed overnight. What decisions do you make? And I'm not saying there are heroics in that or anything else, but again, what part of you is compassionate and finds that you must do things of that nature? How many different ways do you show concern for and care for and love for your students.
Well, I just want to hear, I want to hear some stories because you've had so many years of experience, and I imagine you have some pretty interesting, crazy stories from times of teaching music in whatever setting. I mean, is there any stories that stick out in your mind that you would want people to hear about?
Oh, dear Lord. Stories. One year, you know that we had a group, Simmons Classic. One year they were singing out at the Church Music Conference at Glorieta. There in the mountains in New Mexico. Beautiful setting. Gosh, lovely place. And here we were singing right at the time that dusk was settling. So at that particular time, I have to ask them if they would open the curtains so that people could see outside. And when I gaze into the night sky and see the works of your fingers, the majesty and glory, compelling, because of what the piece of music was singing was opening up in a vista before us. So some of those experiences, we closed out a choir tour in Waco, an amazing choir tour. We got into the church, no lights on, but we went in, no one was there. I didn't know how to turn on some of the lights or anything, but we had enough. Concert choir spread out around the church and then up and so forth. And we just slowly but surely we went through the music. We had an indescribable performance experience, singing amongst ourselves to a beautiful empty room.
Hey, I think those are great stories.
Well, like I said, there were just lots of wonderful things that happened. I would say one of the high points was the number of times we performed for TMEA, because it gave us a chance to challenge ourselves to a higher level of performance and so forth. We never made it to a national ACDA, but we made it to a Southwest Division. And that was a great experience as well. There's the other thing too, just the alumni choruses. It was just so wonderful to be with ours and friends and everything and get to conduct once again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the alumni course is going to be great. We're really excited for that. I think a great final thought for this, let's just say hypothetically that every student, every person that has ever sung under you before is all in a room together and they're listening to you, they're listening to this. And if there's one thing you could say to them, to the people that you've been able to teach over all these years, what would you like to say to them?
Well, what I'd like to say after we've talked about all of these various experiences and everything else, I can look at them and say, in truth, I love you. And to be conducting in a performance situation, to know that two without saying a word. It's funny. Nicole Miller, wonderful young lady. Oh, Brenda taught her in the second grade. But also I had her in Baptist State Youth Choir and so forth, kindergarten, seventh. She said, Dr. Hawthorne, you just lied to us. And I said, what are you talking about, Nikki? She said, you just made us fall in love with you in Texas Baptist All-State Choir. And then you came to Hart and Simmons and you worked us to death. Anyway, just wonderful, wonderful times.
Great. We're excited to see the Alumni Choir happen again. Tell our listeners again, what's the date that is happening, if there are any HSU choral alumni listening?
Yeah, it's October the 25th, I think, and the 25th, 26th, whatever that weekend is.
It's a Saturday, right?
The concert is, yes. Okay. Our plan is to eat together in the newly remodeled, expanded, built, whatever, cafeteria. And the nice thing about that is people will see that and they'll remember too what that cafeteria was like when they were there.
Right.
And then we'll just go straight over to the choir room, rehearse a couple hours there on the music that I've chosen, come back the next morning and do a little more touch up on all that music and then do the performance.
And we'll be sure to link, because this episode will go out before that happens. So if you're listening and you'd like to sign up for that, it's not too late by any means. We'll link the sign up for that in the description of the episode, so you can do that. And we're actually not going to be able to be there because we're going to be at a wedding. But so sorry, we're going to miss it. But hey, yeah, it's still going to be great though.
Well, we hope that it will, and hope that it will fulfill some of what it has in the past, because this is a time that we all admit with things that have gone in one direction and needed to be restructured and everything. Now is a time that just to get together and make music like this, I hope will strengthen and rebuild those bonds that we've had in the past as well. And that is where the school is right now. I think the School of Music and so forth, we're at a point where we need from all corners that kind of support and that kind of pleasure to say, yes, this is my university. Mm-hmm. And I'm very pleased to be here.
Yep, and great things happening there.
It's amazing. And that's the other thing about that I experienced very, very, very early on. And that is, I wasn't the first thing that ever came along to happen at Hardin Music University. In fact, there's a big foundation from years past that I was fortunate to be able to come and continue to build on the base that's been there. Dr. Will Porter, Ed Hamilton, Dr. Morris Beachy, Jim Cram, all of those people have built a choral legacy for over many, many years. And for anyone to think that, okay, I've arrived, look at me, no.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Humility.
But, standing on the shoulders of people who preceded you, it doesn't hurt to admit to that. You cannot have done it by yourself. Are you a teacher?
Yes.
What grade?
Middle school.
Middle school. Oh, Lord mercy. Bless you. We need middle school teachers. Mm-hmm. Oh, Lord. What's the biggest thing you're dealing with now?
I would say a lot of, paperwork. It's just a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with teaching, and also just behavior in kids these days.
Oh, they've changed.
Very much so.
Know your students. Love your students.
Yes.
Support your students. Do you like to go to basketball games? Do you like to see football? Do you like to do things like that? Mm-hmm. So that your kids can see you're there liking them as well?
Yes.
And if you can't do all of that, can you find out that the boys' tennis team won the such and such tournament and have it over the morning announcements? Mm-hmm. Anything like that really highlights your students is one more thing. And that's one more thing that's a plus for you too. That they know you and know that you care about them and so forth. Teaching's wonderful. Yes. Don't let it get you down.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Measure, a podcast for music educators. We hope you learned something that will help you stress less about how to teach so that you can focus more on who you're teaching. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating and review, subscribe, and share this podcast with other music educators. See you in the next one.